So you might be wondering what's going on with the S&P 500 dropping 20%, but more importantly, what does that mean for you? And especially if you're looking to buy or invest in small businesses. So in today's lesson, we're going to break down what's happening in the markets, what it means for the economy, and why all of this might be actually the biggest green light we've seen in years, maybe, for getting into small business deals. Now, if you don't know me, I'm the founder of rollups.com and acquisitions.com. We've been involved at this point in over $1 billion worth of acquisitions. So I hope I can share some lessons from what I've seen over the years, how the market ups and downs affect small business buying, and how you can make the most out of it. Let's start with lesson number one, which is the fact that the S&P just dropped 20% and why that matters. Now, first things first, right? The S&P 500 briefly dropped more than 20% since its most recent peak in February. Now, that number it gets thrown around a lot, right? The S&P 500, but it's not just a headline, right? Because the 20% drop is usually when people start thinking like, wait, like maybe we're heading into a recession here. So in the past, this kind of drop has happened during big downturns, but also during lighter recessions. So what's the key here? The key is that this is when things get interesting if you're into buying businesses. Why? Let's talk about it in lesson number two. It's the understanding that not every recession is a crash. A lot of people hear recession and they think about maybe 2008 or the dot-com crash, but not every slowdown in the market is that extreme. So in the 1980s and 1990s, we had market drops of just 20 to 27%, and they still counted as recessions. So if you're seated around waiting for a total collapse in the market, you might miss your shot in the opportunity, right? If you're a smart buyer, smart buyers, they don't wait for a massive chaos. They act when they see opportunities like we see now, which moves me to lesson number three. The market drops before the news hits, right? So here's a wild stat you need to understand. The market usually hits bottom before the news officially says, yep, we are in a recession. And it's usually around 2 weeks earlier. So if you're waiting to hear it in the news, you're already late, right? People who move early, they usually get the best deals, right? Moves me to lesson number four, which is understanding how long the market stays down and why that really matters. So it's not just how much the market drops, it's about how long it stays low. If it stays low for months, you'll see companies start cutting back. And that often means layoffs, which then push us into actual deeper into a recession, right? So what it means for us, the business buyers, it means that motivated sellers are there. They're ready to make a deal when we have those opportunities. Which moves into lesson number five, which is to understand that what happened in 1998, I mean, it's something you need to pay attention to, and it might be happening again. So what happened in 98? The market dropped 21%. It bounced back a little. Then it dropped to 24% and took off. So no recession came. And same thing could happen now. If the Fed stops tightening money, we might see a bounce too. Either way, there are chances to buy that you want to pay attention to. Let's move to lesson number six. The tariffs are making people nervous. So the tariffs are a big talking point right now, right? You hear it all over. And yeah, they spook investors, but short-term panic often creates long-term opportunity. So if sellers panic, the prices drop, which means that that could be your moment as a buyer. Lesson number 7. If you want to look for the real signal, look for jobs, watch jobs. So forget all the fancy GDP numbers or whatever you hear people talk about. Watch the unemployment. If people are losing jobs fast, it means that things are really slowing down. But if job numbers, if they stay okay, then this might just be a dip in the market. Either way, both setups create, again, great and opportunities as far as deals. Lesson number 8. Big drops don't always mean recession. All right, so here's a fun fact. In 1987, the market dropped 36%, and we actually never saw a recession. So don't assume that a drop always means disaster. It really, really depends. Which moves me to lesson number 9. When big investors get nervous, they look to diversify. So for you, it's good because when the market gets shaky, investors looks for new places to put money. It often means that they'll be much more excited about putting money in small private businesses. And that's when cash, partners, and deal flow can grow for you as a potential buyer and for you to have more of those opportunities. So you want to be there when it happens. Lesson number 10 is that slowdowns change behavior. So when market drop and they stay down, people stop spending money usually or spend less. And then business owners, they feel the pressure and they start thinking about selling the business, right? So again, that's another window for you to find a motivated seller. Which moves me to lesson number 11 is the understanding that right now easy money is drying up. So back in 2023, money was everywhere. Now it's not so much. So cheap money is disappearing. I don't know. We'll see what's going on with the Fed, but it means that fewer people chasing risky ideas and more people are going to be more focused on real cash flowing businesses. And that's good for us, again, if you're looking to buy businesses in the businesses that we're looking about. Lesson number 12 is the understanding that uncertainty equal more sellers. So the more confused the economy looks, the more business owners will think about getting out. It means franchises, agencies, online stores, home services. Lots of people will start to look for buyers. And obviously, when they look for buyers, more sellers in the market means potentially better prices for you as a buyer, right? Which moves me to lesson number 13. Expect potential bounces and understand that they happen fast. So be ready. The markets can snap back quickly. If you wait until it's obvious, remember, you're too late. So now is the time to get your money lined up. Be prepared. Build your network if you don't have. Learn how deals work. Find deals, how to analyze deals so you can move fast. Warren Buffett is sitting on billions and billions and billions of dollars looking for opportunities right now. If the smartest maybe investor in the world is doing that, guess what? You probably want to start looking for opportunities as well. Lesson number 14. 2025 might be a head fake. So what it means that we could get a small recession in 2025. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, it's just from everything I've been reading, right? Right. But it might mean that then we might get a bigger one in 2026 and maybe things bounce sooner. But for you, again, all the macro, all the stories, all the people that tell you what the future is going to bring, it doesn't matter. We don't need to guess it perfectly. We just need to be ready and be aware of the opportunities that are going to come to us from investors, from sellers, and just be ready with the right skills when we find the right business. Lesson number 15. here's why I think buying businesses is the move right now. So here we are, right? The market's down, people are worried. A lot of people out there are freezing up, right? But what it means for us, it means that this is the go time because the best deals happen when people are scared. The best investors are doing their best work, their most amount of work when people are scared. And then remember, we're talking about in our world buying private businesses. When you buy private businesses, it gives you control. It gives you the income when you buy cash flowing assets. And those are real assets, cash flow producing assets that, again, it depends on the deal. If you know how to find out if it's a good deal or not, but if it's a good deal, investors are starting to love those deals because it allows them to diversify from the crazy market. Lesson number 16 for today. Lots of lessons today. JP Morgan just raised the odds of a recession to 60%. That's not small. And JP Morgan, that's not your neighbor financial advisor. So if they're telling that, I suggest to take it seriously. So what it means to you, that's in lesson 17, which is layoffs means talent or more talent is available. Especially you see it in the tech space when there's a big tech layoffs, a massive wave of amazing great talent is going to be on the market. So if you're looking at a business, ask yourself maybe could this company scoop up A players for cheap right now when we have this opportunity? Because hiring great people is way easier during downturns. And it can be a game changer for the right acquisition. If you have the right acquisition with the right team members, I mean, that can be the difference between you making tons of money in a business or not, the people that you have in place, right? Which moves me to lesson number 18. Advertising costs drop, which means that you can buy attention in a cheap way. Because what happens in the economy in this situation is that big brands, big companies, they pull back advertising. So advertising prices go down, which means that if you're buying a business, especially if you have a good working product, a good marketing funnel, this could be the time for you to double down on advertising spend and get it cheaply because it's not as competitive as before. And you could really compete in your market much faster. So look for deals if possible where the customer acquisition flow is dialed in. Then if you're doubling down on that, that's where you can really edge and that the edge can be really compounded. Lesson number 19 is buyers pull back, so marketing must step up. Even the warmest leads get cold during uncertainty. So if you're buying a sales-driven business, you want to expect a longer close time, a longer sales cycle. But it also means that the marketing becomes more powerful and more important. So look for businesses with strong top of funnel flow and or branding. If you have that opportunity to buy those businesses, it can really help carry the weight of a longer sales cycle. Moves me to lesson 20 for today. E-commerce margins are getting squeezed. If you look for direct consumer brands, they're feeling the hit the most. The tariffs, the advertising cost, you have cautious shoppers. So all of those things are hitting and lowering margins for those businesses. So if you're looking at an e-commerce type business, you want to dig deep into the financials and find out the numbers like the LTV, the lifetime value, the retention. Make sure if they are not strong, then that business model might not survive right now or in the upcoming environment. Lesson number 21, AI is not slowing down. So I'm seeing funding, it's going to be pulled back potentially in many asset classes, but not if you can find a way to build a story with AI. So if you're buying a business, even if it's a boring old school business, and you can find a way to sell the story on how you're going to implement AI, then you can immediately be in an odd space. Watch the video from last week if you didn't on how to do a roll up with AI. But if not, look for ways to use AI inside the business. So it means automating tasks, improving marketing, cutting delivery time, anything to improve margin and create a better story for your investors if you're looking to raise money. Lesson number 22. M&A activity is picking up. So if you're an existing business, it means that you need to remember to grow, you don't need to only focus obviously on organic growth. You can buy a business, right? Or you can also get bought. There's going to be massive opportunities to buy and sell. So if you're looking at a business that you didn't think you can buy with a good customer base or technology, think behind just the cash flow, right? Maybe it can be a bolt-on opportunity for your existing business or for your overall bigger plan. Maybe you can do a roll-up, kind of like your first roll-up. This might be a great opportunity. And a roll-up, if you don't know, again, it's basically the idea of buying few companies in the same space and then merging and saving cost and creating synergies and cross-selling opportunities. Lesson number 24. The trend is going to be lean and mean, lean and real, right? Big teams with no profit, it's not going to be interesting. It's going to be out. Fancy software with no users, out. Scrappy revenue-based focused businesses, scrappy and revenue focused businesses. That's what people want. That's what investors want. That's why small business acquisition entrepreneurs can win the most. So look for businesses that are profitable, that are sustainable, and that don't rely on hype. You're not looking to build the next SpaceX. That's where the gold is. People will look for established businesses that bring in cash flow. Lesson number 25. You might need to restructure the business model. So buying a business is not just about what it is today. You want to ask yourself, can this model that I'm buying right now, can this still work next year? Or maybe can we shift it to deliver more value to the customer in a way that is more sustainable and profitable? Maybe you can add a subscription model, AI, like we mentioned, and other things to support the model in the future as well. You always have the business that you have today and the business you need to focus on in the future. And sometimes the win is not in what you buy, but what business you can turn into. Again, like I mentioned, you can buy the old school businesses, implement AI, and it can become almost like a completely different business. So hit the subscribe button, like this video if it helped you out, and drop your questions in the comment. I'll try to answer as much as I can, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.